Hey there, everyone. Let's talk about creating better communication in your marriage. So, my family and I, at the time of this recording, we've been home for a couple of weeks from a trip to Boston, which was lovely, by the way. So, anyone who lives in Boston, we were in your city for a few days and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was the first time for my husband, my son, and myself. And so, we really had a great time. And when we weren't exploring the city, we were spending a lot of time at the pool deck. And one day I was laying there thinking about how there really is a misperception around having arguments in your relationship and whether that's like a quote unquote good thing or not. And I want to start off today's show by just sharing that having disagreements, having arguments with your spouse or your partner, that is number one, is completely normal. Okay. So let's normalize that. And then the next thing to understand is that there is a side to having an argument with your spouse where you can come away from that situation stronger, more connected, having a better understanding of your partner and why they responded in that particular way in that particular circumstance. And of course, those things can build a stronger connection. They can build more intimacy, overall more connection, right? And of course, many other benefits. But that is possible. But then there's this other side to the coin where you don't know how to fight well, and I totally believe that is a thing. Learning how to fight well with your partner is something that should be high on your priority list, because when we learn how to communicate, that, you know, falls over into when we have disagreements with our partner or our spouse. And so how you go about that really is the difference. And so the title of today's show, Divorce by a Thousand Cuts, if you just visualize, your relationship being cut down by, you know, really talking harshly to one another, calling each other names, that type of thing, like those things just accumulate over the years. They truly compound. And obviously, right, it doesn't have to lead to divorce, but the point is that it leads to a place that isn't quite healthy for your marriage. And I want you to have better, right? And so if you notice some of these things in your marriage that I'm going to share, I want you just to pay attention and really give thought to making a change. And what I believe in is that change, even though many of us sometimes think change can be hard, I also believe that change can be simple. And it doesn't have to be about being pressured. It doesn't have to be about going on a 2-week retreat or going even to therapy necessarily. There are tools and skills that you can learn that are very simple and things that you can apply that are practical and can apply them immediately in your real day, everyday life. And so that is something that I actually teach and really believe in my courses and my coaching. So some of the things that are red flags of how you and your partner may be fighting, and these are some of the things that I truly believe lead to divorce by a thousand cuts. Criticism. So if your partner or yourself are, criticizing one another and blaming one another, and that's like a constant theme in your relationship, that's something to be on the lookout for. Calling each other names, right? Cursing at each other as a way to try to hurt the other person, right? So something else that comes up is sleeping on the couch, and not because you have a bad back, sleeping on the couch out of anger, right? So that's not healthy. Something else that really comes up is using the silent treatment, like weaponizing the silent treatment in your marriage. Be careful there. That's a slippery slope. And interestingly enough, I've met some people who have said, well, you know what? We actually don't really argue a lot. And on the surface, that may seem great, but once you dig a little bit below, you can see that sometimes that's because there's some apathy going on there. There is some, kind of failing ahead of time, giving up ahead of time, where it's just like there probably was a recurring thing going on in the relationship, and you're just like, you know what, I'm done. Let's just live our lives, do the day to day, take the kids to soccer practice, do our daily thing, and not really go deeper and try to connect and get to the cause of what it is that's causing disconnect between the two of you. And so I think it's important to share that not having arguments isn't necessarily a great thing. So those are just some of the red flags that I want you to be aware of. So if you found yourself in your relationship in any of those examples that I gave you, first off, know that you're not doomed. Your relationship is not doomed. It's just a matter of understanding why you're having the arguments that you're having. If there's circular arguments, that's important to understand why you're having those type of merry-go-round arguments, and understanding simple ways of how to do better. And so I want to invite all of you to download my free mini course, and it's super simple. There's 3 videos, and you'll get a video each day, and each video is less than 13 minutes. You can't get any easier than that. So this is basically like my mini marriage 101 boot camp. And in that free mini course, I talk about criticism, blame, feeling misunderstood, the silent treatment, and lack of arguments. And so I talk to you a little bit more about exactly what those are, and then I give you a fix for those. And so I want you to take some time, invest in yourself, invest in your marriage. You may be thinking, well, why do I have to do all the work? And look, it's not about you necessarily doing all the work. It's about you being in relationship with this person who you chose, right? And having it be the best that it can be. And even if you're the one that starts out doing the work first, I promise you, you'll never regret doing this work. You'll never say, well, that didn't work out. I should have never learned how to communicate better. Says no one. Okay, so in the show notes, I'll make sure that I have a link to that freebie, so that way you can start seeing some change in your relationship and start seeing some relief. And so this is an exciting conversation. I'm also, heads up, the next episode that I have, I'm going to talk a little bit about attachment styles. I know that that's kind of a popular conversation, and it's important to understand your attachment style when you're arguing with your partner, because many times that is coming up. And just to give you a heads up, many times those attachment styles, they do have connections to how we interacted with our caregivers when we were growing up. And so, I'm not a therapist, so we're not going to be digging up your childhood and that type of thing. But there are some easy, clear connections that most of the time we can make with your relationship with your caregiver when you were young in regards to your current attachment style to your life partner. It's really interesting. So be on the lookout for that episode in a couple of weeks. This is a bi-monthly podcast. And so also, if you have certain topics that you're interested in hearing on the show, I would love to hear. So the best way to do that is to go to my YouTube channel. It'll be linked in the show notes as well, where you can tell me what topics you'd love me to talk about, or maybe you have a question that I can just answer on the podcast. That'd be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And I want to just say this again. If you are having struggles in your marriage, I want you to understand that all is not lost. You can turn things around, even if your partner isn't necessarily on board in the beginning. Okay. So this work is doable, and it can be fun, and it can be simple. Okay. It doesn't have to be hard. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have a beautiful day. Bye.